Hey there, all you cool cats and kittens. This is Carol Baskin coming from the. Sorry, I just had to do it. Have you guys watched The Tiger King? That woman is completely crazy, and she definitely like fed her husband to tigers. It's pretty ridiculous. Don't watch it if you haven't watched it. It's on Netflix. That's how bored I am. I watched a show about a bunch of random people and their tigers, and they're all crazy. Whatever. So this is the lesson for Wednesday, April the 8th. We're getting closer and closer to hitting spring break. If we scroll down here, guys, I'm going to have uh, the link to the last bit of notes on the ideas of revolution. I'm going to tie that up for you real nice and neat here in just a minute, and then study guide for you guys to work on tomorrow. It's pretty short and sweet. Um, and then we'll get that done, turned in, and then tomorrow you guys will have a test on SchoolNet. It'll be the same rules as last time. You won't be able to see stuff for a few weeks. We will still have the opportunity to do test corrections, but we'll get everything figured out a little later on. So there's that. Let's jump right into the notes. Let's get these things done. This right here is where we left off yesterday. We were talking about basically the idea that governments and people are going to be going against one another, and that's ultimately what starts a revolution. It's governments are mistreating their people, and the people get tired of it, and they finally stand up and they fight for something. Right now, we're focusing specifically on the American Revolution, and the reason why I'm doing that is because we're not in person, and I'm trying to pick something that you guys mostly already know, rather than looking at it through the lens of the Haitian Revolution and the French Revolution. But theirs is exactly the same thing. It's the people get mistreated, the government's the one doing the mistreating, and so there's a revolution and there's a change of government. Okay, so some of the final events that get us going. I want to go quickly. You guys do your normal routine. The Boston Tea Party. This is one of like the most epic events ever. The Sons of Liberty, in today's standards, they would be described as a terrorist group. These are people that lived up in Boston and they wanted to go and mistreat the government as much as possible. So what they did is they disguised themselves as Indians. They got drunk as skunks, and then they ended up going on these trade ships that had come from England, and they were going to make a whole bunch of money off the tea that's going from one place to another. And so what we did is we sent the Sons of Liberty in, and they dumped 15,000 pounds of tea in the Boston Harbor. For those of you that don't know much about tea, whenever tea leaves hit the water, it makes tea. Well, this is salt water, so you can't drink it. This picture isn't exactly accurate. It took two guys to pick up each one of the cases because each case weighed like 300 pounds. Guys, in today's money, that would be like $3.4 million worth of tea that we just threw in the water. And you can notice here that it's really bad Indian disguises. Well, once the Sons of Liberty ran off the ship, they took the bad disguises off. They're wearing their normal street clothes, and nobody would snitch. Nobody would say who's actually behind it all. And so here we've got this situation happening again, in which the government's done something, we fight back. So the government makes stronger regulations, which makes us fight back even more. They called these acts the coercive acts, they being the British government. We called them the intolerable acts because we said we were not going to tolerate it. Tolerating is whenever you just put up with something. Well, they said, you know what? We're not even going to tolerate anything at all with this. And so as we're looking at this, guys, they closed the harbor. They sent in troops. Basically, this was getting us to a point in which fighting was going to happen. And we're not going to talk about the actual fight. We're not going to talk about anything else. But what we do need to mention, and I'm going to skip over that slide, is we had people come together and decide together that we need to do something to gain our independence. We need to be our own country. Great Britain, who had ruled us and a lot of other places for a long time, have finally stretched themselves too thin, and we got to do something about it. Step number one to getting something done is you got to convince everybody around you that it's a good idea. How did we do that? Thomas Paine wrote a book called Common Sense, in which he said basically, as Americans, it is our destiny to be independent. And he wrote it in a common sense manner. Guys, it's like when you go to a doctor or you go somewhere and they try to explain something to you and they're using all these big words, and maybe it's medical terms, maybe it's words that they know that you don't know. sometimes you're like, give it to me in layman's terms or give it to me in common sense terms and they can break it down for you. Guys, you have to realize that the average person in the United States at this point in time couldn't read. They had to make something that was pretty seamless so that you could send it to a church. The pastor would read it out to his congregation and they'd be like, oh yeah, it is a good idea that we gain our independence so that we can be free, so we don't have to pay taxes, and so we can essentially do whatever it is that we want to do. And so what we did, guys, with the help of Thomas Jefferson, who was one of the smartest Americans to ever live, period, dot, is he authors the Declaration of Independence. Okay. He was like 26 at the time, which is crazy. He's 5 years younger than what I am now. He writes the Declaration of Independence in which he declares why we are going to be independent and what that means for us moving forward as a country. And so they got together, they got representatives from all the states. They talked about slavery, they talked about women's rights, they talked about independence, they talked about very important things, which ultimately they end up screwing up women's rights and slavery because women didn't have many rights afterwards and slaves still existed for another 80 years, but that's a whole nother story. But what Thomas Jefferson did is he broke everything down, and this is the ultimate breakup letter. We declared our independence, number one, with a preamble. In the preamble, it basically states it's the opening paragraph, it's the introduction, it's what you're going to talk about. And then they throw out the social contract that all men are created equal and have certain inalienable rights, such as life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That's his words, he wrote it. And that's the philosophy behind why he's doing what he's doing. And then he gets to the meat and potatoes of the letter. And I love this. He writes grievances. That's this is a breakup letter in which he says, a lot of times people will say, it's not you, it's me. I'm not ready for a relationship, blah, 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 blah. Well, he's like, it's not us, it's you. You kind of suck. And he listed out all these different reasons why they sucked and why we needed to get away from them. And then we declared our independence. There is a war afterwards, which we're not really going to talk about. We win the war, which is obvious because now we're independent. Guys, the same stuff happens in France. The same stuff happens in Haiti. They write their own Declaration of Independence. They write their own Constitution a little later. They all stand up and do everything. So that's just the common theme. Just wanted to throw that out there so we had a little bit of context going into the end of this unit. That's Unit 6-7. The study guide I've got open right here. Um, here is the terms. There's 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 8. There's 21 terms. All right, here's what I'm going to do. Here's an Easter egg. If you watch the video right now, you'll know that I only want you to do part one. If you're watching the video, only do part one. Don't tell the bums who haven't been watching the video and they do part one and part two. Well, the joke's on them. If they just watch the video like they're supposed to, they'd know that I'm only asking you guys to do part one. You do not have to do part two. Just do part one. Don't tell everybody. I want to see who's actually watching the videos and not. I mean, I can see who clicks on it in Power School, but I know some of you are subscribed on the YouTube channel. So we'll figure that out tomorrow. I'll make a short video. There's a school board meeting tonight. We should get a little more information on everything that's going on. I'll pass that along to you tomorrow. Um, that's pretty much all I got. Hit me up and remind. Hit me up on an email. I've called several parents today. I've sent some emails and stuff. Left a lot of voicemails. So hopefully I can hear back from a lot of you guys here soon and just make sure everything's going okay. Um, if you need anything, hit me up. As always, stay cool, cats and kittens. Carol Baskin definitely fed her husband to tigers.